Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Cindy Gardner. Hey, Cindy Gardner.
Hey, Laurie Lawson. Pleasure to be with you.
Oh, what a thrill. I have been kicking around the coaching world over 20 years. I cannot believe that, but it's true. And all that time, the name Cindy Gardner comes up, and it is just synonymous with excellent coaching, mentoring, training, executive coaching, and she's always out there doing something and kind of leading the pack and or at least getting us to follow her. And so, what was it, a couple months ago? I see this workshop she's having, and I'm going, something about bolder self. And I go, oh my God, let me see what Cindy's doing now. Well, honey, it was something else. So we decided we're going to tell you all about it because she's got some exciting things coming up. Cindy, first of all, though, like I said, you've been kicking around, I've been kicking around. Tell us about how you got into the coaching world and then how we ended up being bolder or working on being
Yeah.
bolder.
Yeah, great. Well, we've known each other a long time, as you say, kicking around for a while. And I first got into coaching as I'm going to say that it was synchronicity. The signs were all around me. I grew up in the corporate world, spent 16 years in pharmaceuticals and telecom, and was anything but bold, by the way, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. And a lot of people around me kept saying, I think you'd be a great coach. And I had no idea what that even meant. But boy, oh boy, when I,
Basketball. Yeah, I can do
yeah,
basketball.
one of
Yeah.
those people, right? Yeah.
Really,
Any
yeah.
coaching sports, you got the wrong person. But when I found out that it was really about helping people to really tap into their infinite, unlimited potential and to just really hold space for people in a world where we often don't hold space for each other. We often turn away from each other, step over each other, and on it goes. So there was something that was so meaningful, so powerful in this dynamic, in this alliance, as we call it in coaching, between the coach and the client. And I soon realized that this career had my name all over it. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a huge, huge mention to IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, where I did my training, as you did as well. And that now I'm a lead trainer, have been at my 10-year anniversary as an IPEC lead trainer. And that experience of going through that training, it absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. So I owe them a lot. And it's just an honor and a privilege to me to be connected to that amazing organization.
Well, that they were the impetus for this show because after I finished IPEC training, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. How can I share this with everybody? So it's like a radio show, a television show. And I was just out there going, you got to do this, you got to try this. And yeah, it's amazing the changes
Mhm.
that can take place. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
We're living proof of that, Lori. Living proof right here.
Yes, absolutely. So what is this crazy talk about bolder self? What are we doing here?
Yeah, what does that even mean? It's really a great question because I think when we hear this term bold or this idea of being bold, almost I think leads us in this direction of thinking that it's bravado, it's loud, it's brash, and it's none of those things, at least not in my world. Boldness is really about stripping back all the layers of who we think we're supposed to be and actually being who we came into this world to be. It's being ourselves. And it takes a lot of courage to be ourselves in a world that's filled with judgment. So it's really about becoming aware of what are the ways in which I diminish myself, that I don't allow myself to be the fullest expression of who I am in the world. Because when we're not that, we rob the world of our gifts and our talents. And more fundamentally, we rob ourselves of the greatest journey that awaits us on this adventure called life. So I'm really passionate about this because instead of this journey being heavy and laden with armor, as Brene Brown calls it. And I do a lot of her work in the world as a certified Dare to Lead facilitator, as you know, very passionate about that work as well. When we navigate this one and only life that we have with armor, the experience of being alive feels anything but that, right? It feels anything but energetic. It feels heavy. It feels heavy. I'll keep coming back to that word. It doesn't feel, our lives don't feel effortless and light. And I'm not saying that, things don't happen that give us a heaviness, whether it's grief or loss and different kinds of transitions. But on the whole, as we're doing this journey called life, I believe there's a way to do it by being bold, by simply being who you are and setting down all the weight of everything that you're not, so the fullness of who you are can come through. And so being bold isn't like these huge big steps. It's the small steps of being who we are. And I always say, even small steps, it's just one step at a time. We reach the top of Mount Everest, right? It's not like this Herculean effort. It might feel like it at first, but it's really step by step, taking off the layers of who we're not to really come into the fullness of who we are and who we've always, always been since we came into the world.
Well, let me tell you a secret, because I
Oh,
don't know anybody
secret?
who knows you that doesn't think that's one bold lady. So what made you realize? Because I mean, you're out there doing stuff that we're going, ooh, we wish we could do. What made you realize that, hey, there's a bigger, bolder Cindy, and I got to go find her? What was the turning point for that?
Yeah, well, great question because, and it's interesting to hear you say what you just did about being perceived in that way as somebody who's bold, because for many years of my life, certainly well into my 40s, I was anything but that. And I would say fundamentally, it began with messaging from childhood that children should be seen and not heard. And I heard that a lot from my family of origin. I'll say it that way. And so that had me really squelch my voice and not speak up and really navigate the world with this feeling that my voice wasn't worthy of being heard. People weren't interested in that. So there was that weight of just kind of squelching myself. I had a lot to say. Um, and I don't even mean it in an opinionated sort of way, but just kind of sharing who I was and my experiences in life. And I felt very early on that that was not welcomed. There was no interest in that. And so I tucked myself away, and became very, very quiet, very shy, not one to really contribute a lot in conversation, whether that was in family settings or in corporate settings or in any setting. I felt I was pretty good one-on-one, but when it came to being with three or more people, or even two other people, and then some, it became very, very hard for me. And so I became very protective of myself, of my heart, so that I wouldn't be shut down in ways that I felt I had been shut down. It was actually very, very painful. So I talk a lot about the 5 Ps. And so the one I'm talking about right now is very much about protection, protecting my heart. I also became very much a people pleaser. So that's another one of the P's in the mix there of, really wanting people to like me, because I felt like if you liked me, then maybe you'd be interested in what I had to say. But to be liked, I found that I had to contort myself. At least that's the story I told myself. Like I had to be somebody other than I wasn't, who I really and truly was. And so, not to go off into too many tangents here, because boy, I do have a lot to say. It's this idea of, fitting in, right? Contorting myself to fit into places where in circles where I would hope for people to like me and accept me, versus this idea of belonging, which doesn't ask us to change who we are. It asks us to be who we are. So, yeah.
So What I know you had many challenges. What was one thing, so just so we can kind of narrow it down and make it more concrete? What was maybe your first challenge that you said, oh, you know what? I could be doing this bigger, better, bolder, whatever words you want to use. Do you remember what that was?
You mean when I actually really woke up in a big way and
Yes,
said
yes.
life needs to go down a very different pathway?
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say definitely, definitely in the workplace. Even though it started very, at a very young age, even in a family setting, it wasn't until I was in a work environment, and this was just a repetitive pattern as we do. We get into these repetitive patterns, and some of us live those patterns our entire lives until the very end. And then going even on the journey of what we've gone through, even as IPEC coaches, and this raising of our consciousness, and we just become so aware, and everything starts with awareness, right? We know this to be true. And just becoming aware of how incredibly shut down I was, and that going to, what I forget what that term is, on Sunday night that you get where, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Monday and the work week is ahead, and how heavy and how stressful that felt. And just this idea that I had to be a perfectionist. That's another one of my 5 Ps. I just had to, everything had to be perfect lest I be judged. And it was just so heavy. It was so incredibly heavy. And my soul was essentially, um, I would say it this way, that I felt like my soul was dead at work. And that was so contrary to who I knew myself to be underneath all those layers. And I just could not be in that dynamic anymore. So was it about the workplace and the people I was working with? No, it had nothing to do with with the environment and the work. That would have been an easy answer, right? To say that, oh, it was the leadership, it was my colleagues, it was my team members, it was the culture. It was me that I had to get out from under. And I felt like the only way for me to do that was to really shift my life in a very bold and dynamic way. And so it actually led me to going back to my coaching business full time. And still my affiliation here with IPEC and training for IPEC. I don't know that I could ever let that go because it's just so tremendous, that work in the world. But there was something about going back into my coaching business, running that business. I can't hide as an entrepreneur. And it was almost like I had to put myself in this position of jumping into the deep end of the pool because I knew it would actually force me to swim. And for me, that actually worked. And anytime I've been in that entrepreneurial um, environment, it calls forth something in me, my gifts, my talents, my strengths, um, the greater part of me. And when I say the greater part of me, it really taps me into the essence of my truth and the courage of my own heart. It just allows me to operate in a way that those concerns that I otherwise have, it's almost like I don't have time for them. And there's just so much growth being an entrepreneur, and not just being an entrepreneur, but also being so aligned with something I'm so incredibly passionate about. I say that my work is about raising consciousness and building courage. And again, the way I'm approaching it now is this idea of igniting your boldest self. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I was none of those things through the vast majority of my life. And I live with such a sense of ease and flow now, and really believe that my light is out in the world. And I feel like for everybody, this is a gift that you can give yourself. And there's a way to get there. And so I'm really passionate about um, guiding people on that journey to really just get out from the weight of expectation of who you think you need to be, should be. People tell you who you are, who you need to be. None of that is true. The only truth there is the one that when you slow down long enough and listen to the beat of your own heart and your own soul and its whispers to you, it's all there. It's all there. So this is a really big part of the work that I'm passionate about doing in the world.
Cool. So tell us what are you doing to spread the word? I know you got this super duper retreat coming up, which is so exciting. Tell us how that came about. And this is the first time ever, right?
First time ever
Oh,
doing a retreat, hosting a retreat. I love going to retreats, and I thought, it'd be really, really tremendous to actually host a retreat. And I think in this world where we are more and more disconnected, whether we've become more isolated post-COVID, certainly social media gives us a way of connecting. I'm going to put that in air quotes, but there's nothing quite like connecting face to face, breathing the same air, being in community, witnessing each other, being vulnerable with one another, which can feel really hard. And I feel that the need or the desire for that is greater than ever to really come together. And this work is really well suited for being face to face with each other, for gathering around the campfire. No pun intended there, though it works for igniting your boldest self. And it just feel the timing. I've been thinking about doing this for years. And like most things in my life that have worked out particularly well, it was that intuitive hit that said, go baby go, the time is now. And so November 13 to 15 in Nashville, yeehaw, is the first of many
I know
retreats.
Cindy as a New York City gal, so it's like, okay, what are you doing in Nashville?
Talk about bold, right? Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
It's a bold move right there. Yeah.
So what is it that you know what I'm afraid? I'm afraid that it's so astounding what you're doing that people are going to go, oh my God, I don't know if I can do all that. But like you say, it starts with one small step. And I'm going to share something that you told me. I hope it's okay because we were talking before we
Mhm.
started taping, and you said one of the challenges I had was that I don't like to sell, or I don't want it to be. Assuming that I'm selling something, and that's something to overcome, and then that's just a little tiny step. My big thing when I was doing coaching was I was raised down south, and it was like, mind your business. You don't ask people those questions. And it's like, well, as a coach, yes, you do. And I had to overcome that. So it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, and my life has to take this huge turn immediately. One little step, like Cindy said, is going to lead you into paths you didn't even know exist. So how what would you say to people that go, you and I agree that we got into coaching because it's like, oh, it's got to be something more than this. Because I played the corporate role too and got to the top of the ladder and went, no, I don't think so. I don't want to be here. So how can people tell that maybe this is for me? Little Spidey sense. You got any hints for them?
Yeah, I'd say if you're navigating your life in a way that there's something more where something just feels out of alignment. And I think, look, life is going at a very, very fast pace. And that's probably even a gross understatement. And sometimes we don't slow down long enough to hear the voice inside of us. And even our body speaks to us somatically, right? What we're feeling. And so if there's something that feels off, like you just said, even in the corporate world where you're like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, maybe you notice this. I tend to notice it more and more. This life thing is flying by at a very fast pace.
Yes.
And if there's any inkling, any whisper in your soul that this ain't it, this life I'm living is not the life I know I'm destined to live, that there's this version of me that I'm living that's not the essence of my truth. Like, like even the idea that there's a version of us versus there's just us. This is just who I am, right? And if there's any kind of whisper, any kind of inkling around that, that your life is somehow out of alignment, then there's something here. And, it's interesting that a lot of people are struggling, whether it's conversations that they want to have with a family member or a leader who's wanting to give feedback at work. And it's hard, right? It's hard to have the courage to do that. And we have our reasons and we have our stories for why that is. And we do that with our own lives as well, where there's something that we want to express. There's a certain way we want to be living our lives in alignment with our greatest truth. And for some reason, we think we're going to be judged. We're going to be kicked out of the club. Well, what club are you in? It's probably one that's not your club, because it come back to this word, contorting ourselves to fit in, to be accepted, as opposed to, what if I actually lived in the courage of my truth, just the way I am? And, look, not everybody's going to fall in love with you, but there's a term for that. It's called natural selection. And when you drop this mask that a lot of us tend to wear, you'll fall in love with yourself, and the people that are meant to cross your path, they're going to be there. And, kind of going back to your comment about selling and that energy around selling, I feel, and I really believe, that when there's a calling, the right people will show up. When I say the right people, I mean the people that, really is a fit, that if it feels like a calling. And so even with your life, what is the calling of your life? What is your life calling you into? If you were to think about your life in terms of a weight that you're carrying around, how heavy is that weight? And if there's any weight to it at all, that's an inkling. That's a whisper. That's a sacred whisper, I would say, to slow down and pay attention to.
Okay, you know what? So let's eliminate some excuses that people might be telling themselves right now.
Excuses? Do people make excuses? What? Okay. What?
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Let's see. Do you have to be a coach to attend this?
Oh my gosh, no. No,
Okay.
no, no. Not at all. It has nothing to do with, really has nothing to do with your profession, at all, or age or gender or any of that. It has to do with, am I living a life that's in alignment with me, with my truth? Am I living a life according to society's expectations, to my family's expectations, my partner's expectations? Are you living a life that is out of alignment with what you know to be true for yourself, right? If you're being really honest.
Well, you
That's
answered
that.
the other question I was going to say. Is there an age limit? No. Okay, I go on this great 3-day experience, and then what? Do you just drop me and then move on to the next people? How is there any support that's going to go on after this, or?
Yeah, this is the beginning of a community, an ongoing community of boldness, if you will, because the larger vision is, you come through this experience, and it doesn't mean, oh, all of a sudden I'm going through life and I'm completely weightless, right? Because even for myself, right, every day I recognize, what are my bold moves, right? Again, doesn't have to be anything big. For example, doing this show with you, Laurie, for me feels like, oh, this is a bold move, right? Just even putting myself out there, it's a bold move. And um, so it's about building a community ongoing, where we can share what these bold moves are for ourselves, where we can support each other. Again, going back to the larger mission and vision, is to create a world with a lot more light, to really illuminate the world. And I believe that the way we do that is by being the greatest expression of who we are, and bringing our strengths and our gifts, the things that make us uniquely human, the things that make us uniquely you. one of the things that we say at IPEC, I don't know if you recall this, Laurie, but this stands out to me. And I've done countless trainings at this point. But one of the things that we say along the way is that you are a once in all history creation. And I think, boy, the magnitude of that statement, like, oh, what a loss it would be if you, once in all history creation that you are, didn't live your life according to the essence of your truth and rising from the courage of your own heart in order to be able to do that in a world that, look, admittedly, can feel really, really hard to do that. So that's the importance as well of the ongoing community. So more to come on that, more events and so forth as to how that plays out. But for sure, it's ongoing.
Well, I know you're calling this, you're not calling it a program, you're calling it a retreat, but you're not calling it a program, you're calling it a movement. And tell people, we've got like 2 minutes left. Tell people, how can they get in on this movement? How can they get to this? How can they get to Nashville? How can they get to this retreat and do their thing? And what else is there available? What's on your website, you know?
Well, the first thing you have to do for Nashville is to buy some boots, okay? And no, no, you really don't need to. It's very casual, come as you are, and I do mean that sincerely. But I will say that in our less than 2 minutes remaining, the fastest, easiest way is to simply go to my website, cindygardner.com/retreat.
Ah,
You
beautiful.
gotta love a URL that makes sense. So cindygardner.com/retreat. And you can navigate to other pages on my site as well to see the nature of my work, which I think we've talked about quite a bit already. But specifically for the retreat that's coming up real soon, you can find out more about that there. And
Give us the
yeah,
dates again,
thank you all.
November 13th to 15th.
November 13 to 15. So it's coming up really, really quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we got a minute left, and I'm just, I have to congratulate you for just, you could have just gone along with what you were doing, and everybody would have been impressed. But it's like, no, let me start a movement, let me start a movement. I'm going to ignite my bolder self, and also, I hope what you're going to do, because I so loved the workshop that you did that really got me interested in this. I hope, you're going to keep doing stuff like that to let people know what's going on. But Cindy Gardner, I wish you so much luck. I will not be in Nashville because I have another commitment, but who knows? Maybe, yeah, I hope this is the first of many. And I hope you're going to let us all know how it goes, because this is some
Yes.
exciting stuff you're doing here. So thank you for being on the coaching game. And
Thanks for having
I would recommend, even if you're sort of just thinking about it, go check out that website, cindygardner.com/retreat, and see what you got going there. And you never know. So thank you so much. See you
Thank
around.
you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.